Okay, so you've got grammar stuff we can go over first.
Yep. So it's probably easiest to load up the email that I sent, which annoyingly is hard to do from my email
I
app.
actually
But
don't have an email client on this computer.
so I actually have started using what do you call it? Just the Google Groups. I'll just shoot a link
Oh
to
yeah, I
image
can
to
view
here real
that.
quick. Yeah, like if I'm just reading stuff, then that tends to be um easy. Um, yeah, so I'm not sure if this was necessarily the best way to post like a whole bunch of questions, but I figured it was better than like 4 or 5 different emails, um, considering the exercises. Um,
Okay, yeah, I skimmed this earlier. Do you have a visual tree somewhere? Oh, link to analysis, link to raw.
yep. So on the analysis, that's got the trees rendered. They're not perfect in terms of um, not super easy to necessarily read depending on your screen size, but they do work. So yeah, there's 2 options there, and then I conclude like at the bottom of the thing there um, about the second one. I sort of include like working in a lot of these.
Okay, so for this one, can is the finite verb.
Okay, not explain.
So it should be the root of the tree unless you're doing the second model.
So the way that I sort of thought about this was like uh the thought process I went through is the sentence is about explaining things, and I explain is sort of
Yes.
like works as a sentence, and so it felt like
Yeah,
can was more of a helper. But
yeah. So the second one is modeled on what is the main topic, basically. So people conceptually think about what the sentence is actually about, and that's what that version is for. The first one, the point of having a different version is to follow certain grammatical principles that are different than what is the main topic. Let's put that at the top. So the point of the other version is it's based on the technical grammar idea of a finite verb versus a non-finite verb. And one of the ways you can tell is a finite verb always have to have a subject. So explain does not have a subject, so it cannot be the root node. The
okay,
fundamental concept is a finite verb means that the action is actually happening. A subject does the action. So we're talking about an event. A non-finite verb is talking about something else, like the general concept, such as
so
explaining.
because this is like a hypothetical, as in I'm not actually doing the explaining, but I can do the explaining. Um, explain
Right.
is
So you're
like
not
only
doing an
partially
explain
defined sort of
action
thing.
in this sentence.
Yep. Okay.
So
So
the
what you meant
action
the
actually
second.
being performed is the can action, which is, it's not normally conceptualized as an action, but it is the verb, the thing that you're doing is being capable of explaining.
Yep. So what you were saying earlier, like like the second tree that I made is maybe valid in a conceptual sort of sense, but
Yeah,
not in a grammatical sense.
there are advantages to this one. It's a reasonable approximation. It has some elegance or conceptual niceness because it centralizes the thing the sentence is about in some sense.
Yep.
So it's more topic focused.
Yep. Okay. yeah, so I've been trying to, like, as I go through these, trying to figure out, um, yeah, like playing with
Finite and
examples, but
non-finite verbs are not covered very well in general. There's not a lot of stuff on them that I saw, but I believe there are some decent articles on Wikipedia, one or two of them, so I would recommend looking there. Wikipedia has some surprisingly good and detailed grammar material that is better than a lot of the random uh, tutorial grammar sites.
yep. Well, that's one thing I find is there's a lot of lack of specificity. Um, like I was thinking about our conversation the other day about preferring abstract versus concrete stuff. Um, and I think the thing that frustrates me about the example side is that often people don't add the abstraction, and then you have to guess at the abstraction, which is sometimes a real pain when you're trying to like learn. Um, in that you've got to like do more things, I guess. So it's okay when there's lots of examples to support an abstraction. That helps, but yeah, and with a lot of the grammar stuff, when they're aimed at like people learning, uh, like there's a lot of content on like should you use that or which, but there's not a lot of content on what is that and how do you like interpret it, sort of thing.
Yeah, most people want answers rather than concepts. You see it a lot with math as well. A lot of people just want to know, how do I do this? I want to get it over with,
Yep.
rather than
And
understanding what's going on.
yeah. So um, yeah. Now the reason I did the I can explain first was I added that like after the fact, um, when I tried starting to. So I wrote a bunch of. I think this one and the next one were already in my list, and then uh, oh, and I think I added the So Alice one as well, and then but the main um thing I started with you were done whether you fight or run as a correlative thing, and then I came back and went through them all, and at that point I added the I can explain as a sort of a micro example based on the next one, so I could figure out a smaller case.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Um,
good strategy.
however, it then I wonder if that's maybe misleading if with regards to the second one in terms of the grammar structure, because like the second one, I can explain the acronyms if need be. So we can cut off the preposition at the end and then just I can explain the acronyms. And it feels like the acronyms is the object of explain, which I think
Yes,
is
it is.
why uh, and if that's the case, then in this example, does that mean that the grammatical structure is different? Like that,
No.
okay, so can is
You
still the
can
main.
you can take either of the previous ones and put acronyms as the object of explain.
So, like an auxiliary verb can have an object?
Well, explain's never an auxiliary verb.
Okay.
So,
Um, if explain's
so
never
you
an
can do
auxiliary verb.
this,
Oh, yeah.
and you can also do the more proper one, is this way. So explain is the object of can, and acronyms is the object of explain.
Um, so this is like one of the, I guess the things that I sort of sometimes get a bit confused about. So a verb can be the object of a verb, but only when it's
A non-finite
like,
verb can play a noun role, yeah.
okay.
It has to either be a gerund or an infinitive to be an object.
Um, Okay, so how is explain a verbal then?
It's an infinitive.
Infinitives aren't verbals?
It is a verbal.
Okay.
Verbals are not.
Uh,
Verbal means non-finite verb.
okay.
It is a word based on a verb, which is not acting in the verb role.
Yeah. Um, so okay, yeah, because I think in the grammar article it says that like infinitives often have to in front of them, but don't always.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's no to make it more clear that it's infinitive, but it is playing a noun role. It's the thing that you can do.
So
And
the
it's not
general,
in the gerund form. It's not explaining.
so because so participles need to be adjectives or adverbs, right? Like
Yeah,
they're always modifiers. So if it's in a noun role, it needs to be a gerund or an infinitive. And we know how to identify gerunds by the form, like ing type thing.
yeah,
Um, and if it's not any of those, it must be an infinitive.
yep.
Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Um, yeah, like I'm trying to. One of the things that I found sort of difficult is um, like I like being able to go back to first principles somewhere to figure things out. Um, like if I, have trouble with anything, and that works, pretty well in math and coding and stuff. Um, but yeah, I found it maybe a bit difficult with the grammar stuff. Another example is uh, where there's a note somewhere. Um, oh yeah, where you talk about auxiliary verbs or helper verbs. Um, uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the helper verb viewpoint is the less principled one, but it's pretty common, and it is a way of analyzing English that's decent.
yeah. I mean, I don't mind it in the sense that it feels like it's intuitively what the thing is doing. Um,
Yeah,
but
helper is
yeah, but
a
it's always been somewhat unclear.
yeah. This is helper and auxiliary are the same thing.
Yeah. Um, I guess I just prefer the term auxiliary because it feels more technical or precise or
Yeah, it just means that it's like in sort of a supporting role in some sense. There's a sense in which it's not the supporting role; it's the main thing. But there's a sense where we conceptualize it as the supporting role. Like when you say um, has been eating, we're talking about an eating action in some sense. And the has been are helping tell us when it happened and whether it's ongoing and so on. So people
yeah.
started viewing some of the auxiliary verb stuff as tenses. English has the plain tenses of uh, present and past, and then
Yep.
other tenses tend to involve auxiliary verbs. They're a way of
Are there
modifying how the action's happening, when it's happening, etc.
are there tenses other than future, or is like hypothetical future a different tense type thing?
Um, so there's stuff like present progressive.
Okay. So I think I've heard some of those terms
Right,
before,
that's
but
simple Wikipedia.
um, it's like continuing action as opposed to like an instantaneous action.
Yeah, so some actions are ongoing and some actions are already completed.
Yep.
This stuff is covered in Peikoff's course, the different tenses. And yeah, there's stuff about like hypothetical, kind of.
Yep. Yeah, okay, so present progressive. Oh wait, no, present continuous is a synonym for that.
Okay, here's some English. Here's a chart of many different combinations of things. So you have like had gone, will have gone, would have gone, has gone, is
Yeah, okay.
going, were going. There's a bunch of combinations. You
Um,
already have a very good intuitive grasp of these things. And yeah, as you can see, they use a lot of auxiliary verbs like will, be, have, been. So there's
yeah,
certain commonly used verbs that help you make these tenses. It's a way of, the tense system is a way of conceptualizing what the verbs are doing in these
yeah,
cases. It's a standard usage pattern.
yeah. We might we'll have in a example further along. There's a bunch of relevant sentences that I wrote out for that. Um, but yeah, okay. So um, I think I've got more of an idea of I mean, it sort of makes sense in the thing about the like the can. Um, I can explain. It does make sense in that it fits the pattern of like noun, verb, noun. Um, to have can be the main action.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So I might need to just practice that a bit more and make sure I get that.
Yeah. The
Um,
thing to try to look at is what subject is actually doing what action at a specified point in time.
yeah. Um, so this makes me realize as well that I think the place where I put the preposition on um, the in the tree for I can explain the acronyms if need be. I think the preposition is in the wrong spot um, because the if need be is not really about the acronyms; it's about the explaining. Um,
Oh, so about finite and non-finite also, the underlying idea is that a finite verb is bounded. So you have like all the details that bind it to a particular place in time. It's a little bit like a function definition versus a function call, where you actually bind variables to values instead of leaving them as x and y.
yeah. So yeah, what I'm thinking is particularly like partial functions, which is a concept in
Yeah,
pure functional stuff. You usually can't do it with unless you like create a new function, like in Python or Ruby. If you create a function that calls another function with like one defined variable out of two, for example, like you have a plus function and then you write an add three function that puts three in one of the slots. Um, and that makes sense. That's sort of how I've been thinking about um, a lot of this sort of stuff, which actually comes up a bit later with the correlative conjunctions.
yeah. So then the non-finite verb is infinite in some way. It has some sort of unbounded infinite potential where it hasn't, some aspect of it hasn't been nailed down yet,
Yeah,
which very commonly the subject and the timing are not nailed down, and it's not referring to a specific event happening, but it does vary. Like sometimes a non-finite verb has a subject.
I presume it can have the object specified as well. Like it could be
Yeah,
pretty
objects are
much anything.
common though. They have
Oh yeah, yeah,
objects frequently, whereas they have subjects infrequently.
that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, if would not be a modifier for acronyms.
No, I
It
think
should be a modifier for one of the verbs for sure.
yeah. Um, so I've
Also,
just in,
a
yep,
preposition always has a noun as its object, but here you have verbs. So there are two possibilities. Either one of the things after if is actually a noun, or the if is not a preposition, it could be a conjunction.
Yeah, okay.
But it's not possible for it to be this combination. Also, here you have, you seem to be labeling need as a finite verb, but you haven't given it a subject.
Yeah.
So
Um,
a finite verb requires a subject, so that wouldn't work also.
yeah. I sort of realize I haven't been, like with this example, I didn't uh really think about the principles of it. I think I just rushed through it. Um, yeah. Just that there's a lot of because I know a preposition needs a noun. I mean, part of the like what do you call it? Grammar article is like find the noun of the preposition. Um, need be as a thing though. Um, so
Yeah, so
if it's a
my
conjunction,
first guess is that need is a noun.
okay, yeah. If we said if the need arises, that's like roughly the same meaning, but it's more obvious that need is a noun there. Um, and I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't think it was a noun in this case, in this example. Um, but if we had like, if it had like a determiner like the on it, then it makes it more obvious.
It doesn't have a subject, so I think either it's a noun or it's an infinitive acting as a noun. And that's,
So if it's an infinitive acting as a noun, I mean, so it's not obvious where be would go. If it was the noun, then it could be under be. Um,
yeah, it could be the subject of be.
yeah,
So be has a secondary meaning, which is exists, where it's not a linking verb and does not require a complement or object. So it could mean like if need exists, in which case you can see need as a noun and then exists as a thing that that noun is doing.
yeah, and that would be uh, a non-finite, or it would be B would be non-finite in that regard. Um, uh, I guess that's fine, right? As in a partial application to a verb can be a noun, or
Well, I think it might be finite. Like, just think of exists as a synonym for be. If it said if
yeah,
need exists, like need exists is a complete sentence.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so it doesn't need um the other side. So it is then it's a noun phrase.
I'm not sure what you mean by noun phrase. It would be a clause if you have a
Oh, sorry,
subject and
yeah,
a
yeah.
verb.
It's a complete yeah.
I think there might be something weird with this. Like it might be informal. It feels like a common saying, like a colloquialism.
Um, so the rough, if we looked at if as a conjunction, then like we could
Oh,
say I can
it's
explain the acronyms if like you don't understand the acronyms or if the acronyms need to be explained. There's sort of like
I
an
figured it
implied.
out.
Oh, yep.
It's so be is present subjunctive tense. That's why it's be instead of is. That's what I was wondering about.
Okay, yeah, yep.
Yeah, so subjunctive is it's related to the if. So it's related to a mood of verbs expressing what is imagined or wished or possible. So this is sort of like the conditional tense, um, or the hypothetical tense. So we put it into the be form instead of the is form because we're talking about if it's a conditional or hypothetical. So that's why it's a different word.
Okay, I need to so I mean I get the relationship between like if and a hypothetical, but I definitely need to think about it a bit.
Yeah, that's just determining why it is, why it's not the word is. At first I thought it might
Yeah,
be
okay.
informal, but it's just for this particular word. The present
Oh yeah,
subjunctive
because
version is be.
we could say like if there is a need sort of thing.
Yeah,
And use is, but yeah, okay. So there is a need, roughly needs be in this context, which makes it more obvious that need is a noun. Um, yeah.
yeah. So why don't you try updating the tree and see what you can do with it now?
Um, yep. So, all right, if we, um, so, um, so, okay, let me just think again. In terms of so if explain is acting as an infinitive, um, how does like the acronyms, is that acting, I mean, no, that's a noun. It's the object of explain.
Yeah, right. So when you have explain, you're asking explain what? It needs something to complete it.
Yep. Um, yeah. So explain the acronyms. I guess that's a verb phrase, right? As in we could say, I explain the acronyms. Um, with a partial application on the object. Um, yeah. Okay. And then if need be, so I guess I'm not sure if it makes a difference whether if is a preposition um, or a conjunction. It sort of actually makes more sense as a conjunction. Like the structure is easier to think about.
Well, so if it was a preposition, what would the noun of the preposition be?
So, well, need be um, as a clause acts as a noun, right?
No, clauses in general don't act as parts of speech. It is a complete thought, not a noun or a verb. It's got both noun and verb.
Uh, so, um, I mean, it's got both in them, but like as a complete thought, um, like we can refer to that via a pronoun, like it or that. Um,
Yes, you could have a pronoun refer to it, and then you have a single word referring to that thought. But in this case,
um,
we have the words. It's an actual, like, simple sentence.
yeah, okay. So I've sort of been under the impression that like simple sentences, clauses, entire sentences can, in like some cases, act as nouns. Um, they don't
Only
really act.
when there is some word that causes that. They can't just do it by themselves.
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah. Um, yeah.
Like, if you put a
I can
that in
explain
front
it.
of it, then
Yeah.
you can view it that more that way. But
So you sort of have to create a reference for it first. Um, so
yeah,
in even just a label, like if we had like, um, like C1 colon and then like a thing, we could refer to C1 as a noun, but only because we've now named it, or labeled it in some way. Um, so because, um, so we could say like, I can explain the acronyms if that need be. Uh, which could, I mean, it's awkward to say, but that feels like it could be then a preposition where if the subject of, or the noun of if is that, um,
Yeah, that sounds like it could work.
um, it's not something you'd say, but I mean, unless there was like a particular need that you'd already identified or things like that, like there was something specific about it, where you wanted that to
Except
help include that.
if is not in the dictionary as a preposition at all.
Is it not?
Not in this one.
Oh, okay.
I think that makes sense in general because a noun isn't a condition. Like you couldn't say if
Yeah.
building. You have to say more like if building exists or if
I
building
mean,
is
the only way you
tall.
could say if building would be maybe, I'm not sure if it would be informal, but like if building was a gerund, like you should wear a hard hat if building.
Oh, yeah, I meant building the regular noun.
Yeah. So, but that feels like special cases with a whole bunch of implied stuff. Like it's if you are building,
Yeah,
or if
yeah.
you are doing, like yeah, something like that. Um,
If building
okay,
is
yeah.
taking place.
So yeah, so if has to be a conjunction, and then it's pretty straightforward. Um, because we've just got I can explain the acronyms as one of the clauses. All right, I think I understand that one now.
Okay. I know I got a tough one. Godwin.
Yeah, so this was I spent 3 hours or well 2 hours really, and then 1 hour like oh yeah, so the first three there were done at night. That was like so I started this at night and I yeah spent a few hours thinking about that, and then came back to it the next day because I had some ideas that I couldn't quite flesh out about how to do it.
Yeah,
And
I wouldn't
so
recommend that in general. Um, if you can't do a sentence in like 10 minutes, that is an indication that it is too hard for you. You're skipping steps and trying to learn too many things at once.
um yeah, so if we look at so the doing the first thing there, like this first structure, was like under 10 minutes. That was fine. But I'm unhappy with it because of that as a subordinated conjunction. Um, so the rest of the time that I spent that night is like on the notes from there down to um, did I keep the to do in here? I think I wrote the various versions of School is Boring. And then like alt structure 2, it was about then that or maybe back to the main sentence at that heading uh, was yeah. So between the first structure and back to the main heading, that was sort of like the stuff that I was doing. So it was all like research essentially, or thinking about the word that as opposed to the problem itself, because I realized that it was I wasn't going to be able to analyze it with other things at the
This
time.
this sentence is a bit awkward because of the word placement. So they have the expletive at the beginning. So this it refers to this.
Yep.
So what the sentence really means is this thing that I'm unable to make justice, etc., is a poor argument. But he's put
Um,
it out of order.
yeah. So I did try rearranging it a few times, and because you can say like that I'm unable to make justice be apprehended and felt uh, is a poor argument of my superior reason, and you lose the it. Um, also, I feel like without the intervention of blows is like a preposition on the middle clause, um, like it's under the that,
Oh yeah, you're right. That is part of it.
which anyway I thought that was sort of fun because of the way that commas are used for multiple
Yeah.
things.
So the reason they do this is that very long subjects are awkward. People don't
Yeah.
like to have a million words before you get to the verb and know what's going on.
Um, the other thing is that like if we reorganize it, where and particularly if like I am unable comes earlier or is said as a sentence on its own, then it sounds more like Goblin is making a statement about himself, which is not the point of the sentence. Like the point of the sentence is about the argument, and so I sort of understand why it's written like this. Um, and it sort of has this like implication of being a hypothetical, even though there's no hypothetical like label in there or anything to actually explicitly indicate it. Um, yeah, I feel like it's a really interesting sentence though, and particularly like because it was written in, well, the book was published in 1793, I think. Um, so I took it as read that a subordinating conjunction was not okay because Webster's 1828 doesn't have an entry for it.
Dictionaries are often a bit late to add things, so I don't think that's very decisive.
Okay,
Like
fair enough.
people start using it before it makes it into the dictionary. So the first thing I would do with this, without being 100% literal, but to get the concepts across, is this is the main structure of the actual thought. This red stuff is the subject, and he's saying is argument.
Yeah, so my second structure, by the way, is like that. I've left both it and that explicitly in there. Um,
Yeah,
but I
I
have
just
put the,
substituted in to make it
yeah,
easier to follow.
that makes sense. So it'll say, so alt
So
structure one is the
what you
first.
can also do with this is the rearranging trick.
Yep.
So what it means is basically you can write it as two sentences, and then you make that word that, and done. Make sense?
Yes, yep. Um, so I'm not sure if I explicitly wrote that down, but I did do that as part of, um, oh well, yeah, so I didn't exactly do that, but I did, so the third paragraph under the main heading there, I realize it's a bit hard to navigate this section, but I've got like it X is a bad argument of my ability to make good arguments, then like stop X colon, I can't do justice when necessary without violence, as like a bit of an outline thing.
Yeah, okay, so this is what
So
I did, but you just threw in the explicit it, and then had what it referred to under it. That makes sense. Seems reasonable.
yeah, I'm not super happy with it, but it's clear at least. Um,
And with an implied conjunction. Yeah, this is similar
um,
to the rearranging if you use it with a semicolon. We can also do that here, just
I think I like
semicolon it.
the Yeah, I think I like the semicolon better in that you could just replace the comma with a semicolon, which I think actually makes the structure more clear because a semicolon outranks a comma. Um, and and it's the smallest change necessary to get like a consistent, sort of easy way to structure it. Um,
I like this one because I think it explains what the sentence means the best. We have the actual thing going
mm,
on as this is, and then here is this right here is the subject of the is in terms of content, and then this is the complement.
yeah. I guess the reason I don't like that as much is that like if you look at that tree compared to the next tree, um, the next tree feels like it makes more obvious the intent of the first half of the sentence. Um, I know that's like it's obviously pretty hard
You
to
mean that you
read.
don't know what it is until later? Like it keeps the mystery?
So not that it necessarily keeps the mystery, like because if like the sentence sort of has a similar meaning if the idea had already been identified, but it makes it more obvious that like the argument is the thing that's being talked about, um, like because the sentence is about the quality of like an argument related to like one's ability to reason, um, not about like Goblin's ability to make justice be felt and apprehended.
Okay, well, they're all reasonable. I want to make this big. Wondering what the best way to do it is. Maybe I make the
So
window bigger.
the
Oh, then that
uh
helped.
yeah, that helps up to like a point. Like I've got like
This is a lot
12,000,
better now.
1200. Yeah. You can also click on the view JPEG or view SVG. Will bring up SVG
Oh, it's
is
at the
sometimes
bottom.
unreliable.
Okay, let's try this.
Um,
That
so
one didn't work.
SVG, yeah, it's iffy. Depends on the browser, but
Okay,
and
so I
this has
wanted to check
yeah.
the details of the sentence, the other parts. So it is argument, what type of argument, an argument, for argument, and it is an argument of something. My superior reason.
So yeah, the to make part, I am uncertain somewhat about that. Like I thought that to make was an infinitive acting as an adverb. Um,
All right, let's see. Yeah, I was
Also,
checking the of and what it modified, but I think you got it
yep.
right. Okay, so I am unable, and then unable to make adverb.
So the B is the aux verb.
Yeah,
I'm
this
not.
is the type of inability is inability to make something. That seems right. And
Yep.
the thing we're unable to make is justice, so this is the object of to make.
So
I'm not sure about this B at first, but I'll check the other
yeah.
part. So we have this without modifier, without intervention, so preposition, noun, and then type of intervention of blows and the modifier. Okay, that looks reasonable. So B, and then we have and, so make justice. Be apprehended and felt.
But this section is then unprincipled, and the apprehended and felt. They look like they're both verbs. But then they can't be. So I sort of treat, by the way, when there's like a conjunction between two words like that, that the like in this sort of case, the output would be a verb phrase.
It
Um,
looks like you're missing a bunch of words. You don't have the in the most necessary cases.
um, no, I don't. Did I? So I feel like I actually realized that at one point. Um, uh, no, have I just never included it? No, I have just forgotten it entirely. Um,
All right, well, that part's not that interesting anyways. It's a, what's in?
uh, Preposition. Yeah.
Yep, and what is the noun for it?
So, uh, so the most necessary cases, I think they're all just under cases. Um,
Yep,
no,
cases is
most
the,
is an adverb on necessary.
yep, yeah, so you have cases, noun, in preposition, and these are modifiers. And yeah,
Yep.
most is an adverb. Okay, so that part's not a big deal. So we have this part. Okay, so this is tricky, but I think I know what it's doing. So, complement. I think it's doing this. I'll make a tree as well. So it's using verbals a bunch. So we have unable to make particle, it's called. And then be.
Um, apprehended and felt are infinitives then?
Um, yeah, I'll look at them. They're verbals,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, yeah.
So justice is object of be, or no, subject of be. Yeah, we ran into this pattern in discussion FI for a while, where so you have make, which is a verb, and you have justice right after it. So you would think that justice would be the object of make, like
Yeah.
straightforwardly, right? However, but then you have this question of what do you do with this stuff? How does it tack on? And what we figured out is if you say that make has be as its object, then be can have justice as a subject, and also that as its object, and then it fits together better if you use justice as a subject rather than an object.
So justice be apprehended and felt is the unit, sort of, or is a unit, and to make has the
Yeah,
entire thing as its object.
yes. So I think the whole thing is the object of make, and it's a tree led by this word be here, which is the verb, the non-finite verb, but still, it's leading the group. So yeah, you see that
Yep.
here we have make, and then we have be, and then here we're going to have the
Yeah.
and then
Okay. Yep.
apprehended and felt. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
this is a hard one, but does this make any sense?
Yes. Yeah. 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 Okay. So two is a particle. So I a while ago we sort of talked about I think it was infinitives and
Yeah,
like keeping them together essentially.
yeah. If you
Um.
just put to make here, it would be fine. Like no big deal either way.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
I
Um.
saw some grammarian separated and called it a particle, so that seems reasonable. But it's not a regular part of speech. It's not playing one of the normal roles. Like it's not a noun, it's not a verb, it's not an adjective, it's not an adverb, it's not a conjunction, it's not a preposition. So,
Yep.
you can call it a whole new part of speech or just don't worry about it too much because it's just a special case. So when you have
I
a
mean, it feels
special
like
case, um, there's like more than one way you could conceptualize or label a special case that works because you're not under that many constraints. It's like it just does this one thing. So you
yep.
don't need like a principle that works in many cases because it only works in the one case anyways.
Yep. Um. As a well, just an interesting sort of aside maybe. So above the alt structure too, as sort of my investigation technique, I rewrote the phrase like I think that school is boring. I mostly wrote it in the past tense. I'm not sure exactly why, but in terms of the um, yeah, so just up there, those list of like six quote things. In terms of the like effects of like had and stuff like that on it. Um,
I see.
so I think they all have slightly different meanings and they're all grammatically correct.
Yep. Yeah, that's what you can do with a bunch of auxiliary verb things. is
I didn't
screw
really look
around with
into
the
it.
shades of meaning.
Yeah, I didn't look into it because it was not particularly relevant to the thing, but I thought it was at least, yeah, somewhat curious about yeah, as a side tangent to think about. So that's why I labeled them as verbs, but I think I
Yeah, I'm
skipped
wondering
a few
exactly what's
steps.
going on with them. Oh, right. Okay. Be is a linking verb. So we can have an adjective after it. So apprehended is a participle. That's what, because it's not the right form for a gerund or an infinitive, but the ed ending is common with participles. So it is an adjective, I think.
Is felt? Oh, I guess yeah, because you can't have like I felted something or I feeled something. Um, yeah, okay. So both apprehended and felt are um participles.
That's my first guess. I'm not sure exactly. I know they're definitely the objects or complements of be, and we understand what it means. They've got to be non-finite verbs. It wouldn't make any sense to have them as finite verbs in the middle of a sentence there. And they don't have a subject. Like, they're not events. No one's actually doing the apprehending.
Yep.
We aren't saying, like, Joe apprehended Sue. So they're one of the non-finite verb forms. I'm just wondering if adjective actually makes sense there.
Um, so I was
Make
thinking about this.
justice be apprehended. So does apprehended work as a modifier on
Well, you can
justice?
also you can talk about like so I mean an archaic sort of way of saying things like might be like justice manifest or something like that. And so like justice apprehended, I think you can or justice felt, you can sort of think of as working the same way. Um, did I write that down somewhere? Um, but I remember thinking about this as I don't think I wrote it down, but so you can
I think it's participle.
um
It
so
is
yeah, I
it
point
is
out
the right word.
make justice felt feels like grammatically correct and the
What
similar
is a
uh
preterite?
they're not
Preterite. Oh, adjective. Expressing a past state or action. Oh, apparently it
noun.
just has an adjective form, according to this.
Uh yeah, okay. In the Mac dictionary thing there, um I mean it's saying that preterite is as a word is an adjective and a noun, as opposed to the definitions of each in the examples. It's sort of like unclear. Um
Oh,
it's
right, I
a
guess it would be the noun form here. So a simple past tense or form. Oh, apprehended is a simple past tense. Well, that makes sense too. Okay, yeah.
so
Anyways, I think it's the participle. So it's playing an adjective role, and it's
um
saying what state we want justice, what state we want to make justice be in, or unable to make.
yeah, as in felt in the past. Like uh if I Google it, the
Yes,
preterite is a grammatical tense or verb form serving to denote events that took place or were completed in the past. Yeah, so it is a verb form.
justice can be in a state of being apprehended, and of being felt. Those are both modifiers that work with it.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, so participle, and let's check felt. Felt is the past and past participle form. It's irregular, that's why I was checking. Like, it doesn't have the ed ending. So
Yeah.
felt is the past participle form of feel, as well as
Yep.
the past form. Okay, yeah, so they're both participles. Mystery solved.
Yep. No, I think that makes the most sense. Yeah, because field isn't a word.
Participle adjective.
So I sort of what do you call it? I have a bit of trouble with linking verbs as well, in that, like, well, I think it's just like identifying them because I haven't focused on it. Doesn't really feel like a special case that I need to think about much besides like using the word complement instead of object.
Yeah, the big difference is that it can have an adjective as the complement,
Okay, yeah. I should note that though.
and also that it's required to have a complement if it's a linking verb. A linking verb has to link two things, one on each side.
It can be a noun as well, the complement, right?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. All right. While you read that, I might just take a quick break.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't think this is necessary. I would just put stuff under the regular root of the tree. So under the would or the have, depending how you do it.
Um, okay.
I think it is modifying the sentence, and so you just take the highest node to represent the sentence, have it modify that. The so I don't think is a conjunction, and it's not. For one thing, it doesn't have a clause. Like so Alice is not a clause.
Um, no,
I
I mean
think
the
it's
Alice is can be dropped as well though. Like when I was thinking about it, the so is like has meaning in the sentence. Um, oh, I guess if it was under the verb, it could be an adverb though as well. Um,
yeah. I just read so as a throwaway introductory remark.
so the reason I have it listed as a conjunction is there's a definition for it as a conjunction that works. Um,
Which one?
there's so introducing a statement as a or a concluding statement was what I found. Yeah, number 6.
Oh, I didn't read it that way. I don't think it's introducing a conclusion. It's not like X, Y, Z, so W.
No,
And
I mean
it's
I guess
not following up. I thought it was more like so what's up is the kind of way people use it. It's
um Well, I would say that I just wanted to add implies past context.
Right.
I mean, in the case that I actually wrote it, there was like past conversation about parentheticals. So admittedly, I have more
If you're introducing a
context in
conclusion,
the
you normally
sentences.
wouldn't put the person's name. Like when you say "so Alice," it sounds like you're opening a conversation with Alice. Whereas if you're trying to
Um,
conclude an argument, you would use "so" without their name, I
it,
think.
it was so there were three of us in the chat room, uh, and I was particularly talking to Alice in this case.
Right, but when you say "so Alice," it reads like this, like "so what did you do today?" Definition 4.
Yeah,
You
okay.
could say "so Alice, what did you do today?" Whereas when you're using definition 6, you couldn't say "so Alice, that's that" without putting commas on both sides of Alice to offset it.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's a question there about whether I was like whether it was ungrammatical then.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, and then it would have a parent. I mean, I guess part of the part of the thing is that uh so I mean, one of the reasons I wrote the sentence
yeah. And you ended up with this, like this Alice is just in the middle of nowhere.
hanging off the end, yeah. So
So
as a way to restructure it,
let's take a look with a tree.
so I've got would as a modal verb brackets helper under have as well.
Yeah, that's not a big deal if you want to do it that way.
Well, this is part of the reason that I'm wanting to focus on that a bit is that like I'm consistently doing something like when it comes to modal verbs or augs verbs or stuff like that, like I'm consistently doing it in a, or it feels like most of the time it's not the grammatically structurally exact way, it's the meaning way. Or sometimes it's a meaning way. Anyway, it's just because I can't predict which way I'm doing it. Yeah. I feel like there's something I'm missing. 'Cause I mean, would is a modal verb, isn't it? I didn't actually check that. Um,
Yeah, I think they view it that way.
yeah, let's
One of
do.
the indicators that they call it a modal or auxiliary or helper verb is when you do not have the to. There's no to for an infinitive marker before have.
Hmm.
I think that they often drop the infinitive marker when you're following auxiliary verbs.
So, I mean, how would you put two in there that makes sense?
Well, it's an
This
infinitive.
sentence would
So in
be.
general, infinitives have a to, but here we don't use it.
Okay, so have is an infinitive. Why is have an infinitive?
Because the thing the sentence was doing is wooding. This would is the non-finite, is the finite verb. Having isn't happening.
Okay,
There's no have action. Have doesn't have a subject.
so there's this relates to a part in the what do you call it in my post. Um, so one of the questions. Um, there's all right, I think it's under the I don't know how to diagram parentheticals maybe is no, hold up. If I adverb, if I did I didn't oh, I didn't fix this error. So um I said I've had some trouble with auxiliary verbs. I think treating them like adjectives works. Um I realized that that should have been adverb, and tried to fix it,
Yep.
but had issues sending
Yeah.
this
So
email
that
link.
does work okay.
Okay.
If you do all your analysis that way, you will understand English in a reasonable way that is reasonably standard.
All right. Then if that's roughly okay, then I have this other problem of misidentifying which is which.
Right.
So, or I guess if it's talking about a hypothetical or a future case or things like that, then it's that like, so the verb
It's
doing
pretty
the
much
tense.
always whichever verb comes first is the finite verb. I don't know offhand an exception.
Okay.
It seems like we just put the verbs in order. So it'll be, see, the standard order is subject, finite verb, and then non-finite verb as object of finite verb, and then possibly more non-finite verbs chained after that. But yeah, the way we set up the chain with several verbs in a row puts the subject and the finite verb first, and then we have the object of the finite verb, and then possibly of another non-finite verb that's the object of this one.
Yeah, okay. And then so the non-finite verb is going to be like a participle, gerund, or infinitive. And some of those can then have their own like objects or subjects.
Yeah,
Or subject might be hard if it comes like if the verb comes immediately afterwards, right? Um,
yeah, subjects are less common for these things.
yeah. Okay. All right. So the thing then is, so would is the verb. And then, oh, I'll just copy this.
Yeah, I think
Um,
people found this like weird enough that they came up with the auxiliary verb idea and started looking at it that way or something.
um, so, and this sentence is the object of have. Um,
So we have would have a parenthetical and then we have an if.
so if has to be a conjunction here.
Yep.
So get rid of the so. So the so is just not really important, right? Yeah, because I could just say like Alice, I just wanted to add this sentence would. Um, Either the so, well, I mean, it's included, so what is it doing? It's not a conjunction, it's an adverb, right? I don't know how to include like Alice in the diagram though.
Yeah, I just put it under the so. It's kind of a special case. I think there's an implication there. It's some sort of shortcut or informal thing.
Well, it's sort of addressing Alice.
Yeah, it's
So,
speaking to Alice.
um, but it's not like important for the meaning of the sentence. Um,
Yeah. So we have the was, subject point, modifier not, object or complement. Is this to be?
so I don't know why I've like, what do you call
To
it?
be example and an example of. And then we have sentence a, and it is also a sentence with, and it's parenthetical a. All right, there we go. Does this make sense? I haven't compared it to yours very much yet.
So some of the things that are different. So under the was, I have to be as an adject infinitive on example.
Oh, that does
Uh,
not sound right, first impression. Let's see. So you're thinking was an example, and also the example was to be something?
um, uh, oh, that would have to be under the point though. Like uh, like as in yeah, as in the to be, if it is if to be was acting as an adjective infinitive, like and then had other stuff underneath it, then uh like it would have to be under the point, not under example. Um, and I don't even have anything else underneath it, which sort of, I mean, it sort of like exists as an adjective is how I think I'm trying to refer to it there. Um,
Oh, sort of like was an example that exists.
yeah, I think that's the way that I was interpreting it.
Okay, so over here we have of sentence A with parenthetical A. So that part looks good. But yeah, I think the to be part doesn't make a lot of sense that way. Uh, you also have if as a preposition here,
Yeah, no, I've made that
followed by
mistake.
a
Yeah.
verb, but prepositions need a noun after them, not a verb.
Uh, yeah, this was the clause as noun mistake again. So um, so a parenthetical is the object of have, which is helping would. So this sentence is under would, and then have a parenthetical under would. If joins the to, then was the point. Not is an adverb. Um, okay, where's to be go in this? So yeah, so example should go under to be. Because, like to be an example. Um, um, of actually is a preposition, and then sentence with a parenthetical. Okay. So I think this is the idea. I've just copied it out of this, and then the parenthetical um, goes on the, yeah, on the would. Um, and that's sort of like adverbial
Yeah, I was
in this.
viewing this as a modifier to that, the would part. I actually didn't reconsider when I found the conjunction, so let's see. What is the thing we wanted to add? It is, I think it's the whole thing. I'm actually going to move that under the if. I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, okay.
What just
So
happened?
that's I
It's
think it's
getting flipped upside down.
you've got
Oh, it's because there's no space. That's why it's doing that.
um is it maybe that it's a different tree as well? Like it looks like there's two sets of lines in some of the vertical points there.
It's definitely it's vertical instead of,
Um,
organize. Move on to top. I don't know what's going on. Why that nerd's acting weird. Anyways, I would move the wanted. I know what to do. I did it again. What? There's some sort of glitch with zooming.
Yep.
I don't know what's wrong with it, but there. Yeah, I would put it on the if because I think it applies to the whole group.
Yeah, okay. So I sort of had that in the original one where yeah, like I've got it
Yeah,
under this node subroot thing.
yeah, you had a similar concept that you wanted it to apply to the whole sentence, basically.
Yep.
And yeah, I think that can be done without a fake extra node.
Yeah, no, it makes more sense when like if we can put the uh
Same
um
thing with the so Alice, I could move that, but I won't bother.
um so the yeah, I don't think the so Alice part is particularly interesting, but I think it makes sense to look at it as part of I just wanted to add. Like the both of those things are distinct from this sentence would have a parenthetical if the point blah 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 blah. Um and they sort of go together in that
They're
uh
related, but I think they're grammatically distinct. You could have
yes, yep,
either one without the other.
yep. They're almost both parentheticals.
Yeah,
Like the so Alice
yeah,
is
they
sort of
are. That's
saying,
so
yeah,
commas are like mild parentheses.
yeah.
So yeah, they're acting similar to parentheticals.
Um, all right, in that case. I guess the so Alice is adverbial in the same way then.
Yeah, I think it's
Uh,
just telling it's an introductory statement. I think it might be informal. The dictionary had it like for questions
there's a whole
or
bunch of
introducing a statement which is followed by a defensive comment, right? This one isn't defensive, but I
it's
I think it's informal.
there are so many like versions of that in terms of introducing a concluding statement, introducing a statement that's defensive, introducing like there was one that I thought would actually fit better, which is involved with like surprise. Um, or there was something I'm not sure if it's in that one or um maybe it was a different thing, a different example that I'm thinking of. Like a different word. But well
Okay,
actually
so go ahead.
as an adverb, so like one definition of show here, referring back to something previously mentioned. Um,
Yeah, it could work that way potentially,
none of these like
depending
particularly,
on context.
yeah.
Okay, so bigger picture. I think you will learn more quickly if you do sentences that are a bit easier and get them more autopilot on all the little things so
Mhm.
that because these big hard ones, you're dealing with too many difficult parts at once, I think.
Yeah, okay. I mean the big ones I've tried to select them for a purpose, which I think is why I've made some silly mistakes as such because I'm not focusing on those parts. Um, like treating if as a preposition. Um,
Right. Yeah, so but if you wanna get good with the grammar stuff in particular, I think you should go through Peikoff's course and you'll get a bunch more practice that way. That
yeah, okay.
is fairly focused on technical details like what parts of speech things are
Yep.
and verb tenses and so on. And
Yeah,
on the
okay.
other hand, yeah, so did you make progress with the Gumroad stuff?
What I found was that I was using a lot of it for like references, which was not amazingly useful. Like it's not meant to be that. But like yeah, so the I didn't look at 1 and 2 much out of the like I mostly was looking at 3. But I didn't then yeah, move on from that.
Okay, what I was going to say about the gumroad stuff is if you keep going with it, you do not need to be better at grammar. It's not based on like fine details of grammar about how non-finite verbs work. So you will be able
Yep.
to continue with that, and it should work fine.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. I do feel like I might be I mean, the reason that I'm sort of trying to focus on some of these examples is because I feel like there's like some foundational stuff that I'm not picking up correctly in terms of the uh yeah, in terms of some of the stuff that I continue to like make mistakes with. Um
Yeah, I think just more practice would help there if you want to
um
get that to
I'm
be
also
more automatic.
I'm also not sure if I am trying to like put too many constraints on it. So like if you had I don't I'm trying to think about like a jigsaw piece type puzzle. If you sort of have things in slightly the wrong order, like and you press down on one thing, another one pops up type thing. That sort of feels like so I don't have enough degrees of freedom for it to fit together nicely in terms of the principles that I'm trying to put together in my head.
Yeah, with practice, you'll figure out how to get them to work. Um, unless you run into sentences that are actually wrong, but that hasn't been the main problem with these.
Yeah. Um, just as long as I'm not like um yeah, making a
One of
bigger
the
mistake
things
by like
is stuff like putting if as a preposition. Those kind of mistakes, if you had more practice, it would happen less, in the same way that you rarely make arithmetic mistakes, even when you're not really focusing on arithmetic. It's, relatively uncommon, I think, would assume.
Um, ironically, that was one of the main things that I lost marks on in high school, was like dropping negative signs and stuff like that.
Oh,
Um, so, um, that might point out like, another part that I'm
yeah.
not
Well,
practicing a lot of that
I
enough. I mean,
actually had
arithmetic,
in mind simpler stuff like, say single digit additions. You're
yeah.
probably not going to get those wrong even if you're tired.
No, I have to be really distracted to get something like that wrong.
Yeah. Negative
Or
signs get
working
to the
in
point where you
multiple
have to
bases.
like keep track a bit more, so it's easier to screw up and
Well, yeah, I guess it's a very small symbol as well, so it's sort of there's maybe some stuff there. But it does mean you get the wrong answer at the end of it. Um,
yeah, but so if you get some of the more basic stuff to be more automatic, it frees up your attention to focus on the harder parts um,
yep,
more, so that makes those easier.
yep.
And so I'm going to steal that kid's lollipop, whether you like it or not. Let's
Oh, there's
see.
one just above that as well that's a simpler form of correlative conjunction. Um,
Oh, I missed one. Okay, to be or not to be, that is the question.
oh, there's even one above that. So
Uh,
yeah, you are done whether you fight or run. So this was just a like I tried to come up with a really small sentence um, with a correlative conjunction. And then there's two versions, one with an implied U. Um, so I've done the verb mistake again.
if whether is a regular conjunction that is the root node here, then I don't think it would be a correlative conjunction with the or.
Um, okay.
I think it might just be a regular conjunction.
So I was less sure about this, like when I created more. So, yes, however, I mean, you can see in the first example there, the or is highlighted. And then the second example there, I was thinking about, like, I'll see whether she's at home. There's an implied or not at the end, in that it's always a Boolean decision if you don't have the or not. But you can specify two examples, maybe more, but you can specify like two distinct things with or. So I couldn't think of a case where
Oh, I
whether
see
is
what you
used
mean.
without an or an implied or not.
Okay, so you're seeing it as whether X or Y. Okay. This is kind of awkward because the weather's not getting directly connected.
Um, to the or.
Yeah.
So the second version then is
Yes.
probably the
I would not put the U here because what you want the U to be is it's the subject of both verbs, right? That's what you wanted?
yeah.
But you have it as a
Um,
parent of the verbs, and a subject should be the child.
so if you look at the next one, I've made it more explicit.
Oh yeah,
I
here we
actually
go.
thought I actually thought these were like equivalent, but of course that's not the case. Um,
Yeah,
because I've got you above and below. Like I've managed to get it right the second time. Um,
yeah. So this one's fine, and what you can also do if you don't want to have it twice is you can put it on the or node itself. You, and this is and like label it that it's the subject for the verbs, but so it's the subject for the group.
yeah, okay.
So this is how you could avoid the duplication if you wanted to, is attach it to the group of the verbs and say it's the subject for that group. But the duplication is fine too, that's no problem.
Yeah, I don't like putting the you under the or nearly as much because it feels like a special case type thing, whereas the more correct way would be to like have a graph type structure where you has two parents. Um, but that doesn't work with white space indentation, making a tree that way. Obviously because it's not a tree. But yeah,
I think that fits fine principled. I don't think it's a special case. The concept is we have a group. The group itself as a whole is playing a verb role. It's a group of verbs. And then the group itself as a whole playing the verb role has a subject. So I think attaching a subject to the group makes conceptual sense and is a proper appropriate structure. Like you can circle this and say this is functioning as a verb, and then you want to give this group a child. And the way to give a child to a group is to attach it to the root node of the group.
yeah,
And in this case, because it's non-standard or non-obvious what's going on, I think a label would be very helpful to
yeah,
indicate that it's meant to be a subject because you're not, when you just throw a noun under an or, people are going to assume that it's a,
part of the list or
X
whatever.
or Y, but it's a different type of connection.
Well, particularly where like these are functioning as participles, I think. And they're both uh because they're past tense, but neither of them have an ed thing on them. Which I think is just coincidence. Or like well, not coincidence, serendipity, something like that. Uh like chance. Well, no, because whether you fought or ran. No, run is no, they're present, of course. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah,
I was going to say,
but they
because
can be
ran
present
is the
participles.
past tense.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I was like, oh, ran is present tense and run is past tense, but I think that's just I don't know why I made that. Oh, made that mistake.
But I don't think they're participles because then they would be what, adjectives?
Oh, sorry. I think I'm thinking of infinitives. Um, but so that was all right. Maybe first principles.
I think they might
So
just be finite verbs.
uh, I mean the implication is like you fight or you run. Um, they're both yeah, clauses on their own potentially. Um,
Yeah, you can just say like you fight
so yeah, so
often.
with the you underneath, the only reason they would need to be something else is if like they were adjectives on you, but that doesn't actually make sense. Um, so in like my first incorrect thing, um, then I don't know, maybe I could make the argument they're adjectives or whatever else, but that doesn't work for other reasons.
All right, let's check another one. I think it would have been better to
Um,
start with like really simple ones. So if you look up, we looked at correlative conjunctions before, there's a list of several, and you could just make like a as simple as possible sentence that uses one, and then see what you can do with it.
well, that was a rough attempt to do that. Like it's only got 8 words.
Yeah, but you could probably make it simpler.
Um,
So,
I'm having trouble thinking of how to use weather like that.
well, I wouldn't start with whether, so maybe a both and or an either or.
Not but something. Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay.
Like I think this one right here, we can go to either Greece or Spain for our holiday. And I mean, I just dropped the for our holiday. This is
Um,
simpler. One of the reasons it's simpler is we're correlating just plain nouns right here.
yep. Well, you could
So that
also
makes it easier to
simplify.
deal with.
Like
Right,
I
here's a
prefer
good
either
one.
Greece or Spain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both rugby and football are popular. Drop the in France. Right, here's a nice simple sentence.
Yep. We've got
So I'd start with some stuff like this and figure out how you're dealing with these. And that would make it easier before jumping into the trickier sentences. Like, let's try this one real quick. You try making a tree of this one, and I'll make a tree, and we'll see what we come up with.
which was the what was the sentence again? Sorry, exactly.
Both
Both.
rugby and
Oh, there we
football
go.
are
Got
popular. I'll put it in Discord as well. Okay, so I made two versions that I thought were worth considering. I see you have the first one.
it. Yep.
Yeah, your first one matches my left one, and then I thought this was worth thinking about.
Okay. Um, oh, is there more there? So that's using it as the predeterminer slash determiner thing slash pronoun. Would it be? Well, it's sort of like that. So it's a pronoun and forward reference.
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
sure exactly how it works, but these are the two structures that seem like they make sense to consider. Both is either modifying the group or it is like leading into the group in some way, right?
yes, yep. Or I uh, well, as an adverb, I mean, it says, yeah, so I went with adverb, used before the first of two alternatives to emphasize that the state being made applies to each. So if that's the case, well, actually, does both work on the and or on the are? I feel like you could put it on the are as well, like both um,
Oh,
would be valid. So like, yeah, I feel like this works. Because you could say both are popular, except then it's acting as a noun.
right. It's different and both are popular. See, that's kind of how this one is. The both is the child of R, and then as
Yep,
its
which
child, we
means
have what it refers to.
yeah, so not as an adverb, but that would be like pronoun. Um, and then yeah, and that would be how like that is sometimes used to introduce some clause or phrase that you're referring to as an idea. Um,
I'm not sure
I feel
about
like
having both as an adverb on R because it relates to specifically this part of the sentence, not the whole sentence. It's not
yeah, yep,
modifying the entire sentence. Like it has nothing to do with popular.
yes, yep. No, I agree.
So, okay, yeah. So both of these trees keep it completely in a different subtree than popular.
Yep. Um, well, I mean, the both as a child of are is the same as like adverb, but yeah, but it's the nouns don't talk to each other across the verb type thing. Um,
Yeah,
as opposed to both like modifying the verb. Yeah, feels like it would have to have a more intimate relationship with both sides of the verb, or
yeah,
both object and subject.
yeah. I have not researched these, so I don't have a strong opinion.
Um, so a predeterminer feels like a label that someone came up with to describe this exact sort of thing, in that
Yeah. So if it's
sometimes
a
used before,
predeterminer, it'll be
but then
this thing, and it's giving us information about the group, I think, is the idea. That seems to make sense. The left one just seems pretty reasonable.
it says used before a determiner though, uh, like which
Oh,
I
like
mean,
all
and doesn't work
these,
as a determiner.
or
Yeah,
once A. Oh, I see. We're not actually doing that.
yeah, no, this
But
is
it's also a determiner, so it doesn't have to be a predeterminate. It can be a regular determiner.
yes, which makes
Predeterminer
more
would
sense.
be like both the employees stole,
Yep,
right? Where we have the both before the. That's what they mean by predeterminer.
yep. Um, I mean, you could have yeah, both the sports, rugby and football are popular, um, and sort of have the rugby and football as parenthetical,
Yeah.
but
But if you drop
that's
now it's just a regular determiner.
well, it's not. Is it a determiner or a noun, like a pronoun?
In this one, both employees stole. I think it's a determiner.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sorry, in that one, I was thinking about the rugby football. Um, but yeah, oh okay, yeah, because both the employees, so you can't just drop the in my example for like both the sports, rugby and football. Um, yep. Okay. I think I'm on the same page now.
Yeah, I think it's acting like a determiner that causes emphasis when you say both rugby and football as opposed to just rugby and football. Like it's unnecessary, it's redundant, you could delete it from the sentence.
Yeah. I think that's often the case with correlative conjunctions, that you can sort of have a very similar meaning without necessarily like all the parts. But I'm just thinking like both as an adverb. So the example here is interesting. Like the film has won favor with both young and old. Um,
So yeah, I've decided that this one makes sense, and both is a determiner being applied to rugby and to football.
um, so where it says like determiner and pronoun, I mean there. So just looking at the definition thing.
Yeah, so
Um,
both can have a noun role. They have an example here, a picture of both of us. So here we have of and then both. So the of is a preposition, and then both is the noun for that preposition. It's a picture of both. So it has to play a noun role in the sentence here.
yeah. Um,
Whereas in this one, it's not a noun role, and which you can tell because you could just drop it and it wouldn't cause a problem.
um, where in the first example where both rugby football are children of and, um,
Hmm.
is both not an adverb? Or I guess it could be both a determiner and an adverb. The determiner,
Determiner is an
it's
adjective. It's a noun modifier. So it's
uh,
modifying the group, rugby and football. So it's modifying a group of nouns. So adjective role or determiner.
yeah. Um,
So we have
I'm
this
just trying to
group
figure out
here.
why it's
So this is playing a noun role. So we have this noun, verb, and complement. That's the main structure of the sentence. And then this thing here is modifying this group. There's a modifier on rugby and football.
so so I've got a definition highlighted on my screen. Um, that I guess I'm wondering. So I can see how that works. But why isn't the adverbial sense uh fine too, or
Let's
wrong,
see.
or etc.
Oh, so young and old. Are these adjectives or something? Or are they?
I think they're nouns.
Are they? Hmm.
Well, you could add the in front of both of them, with both the young and the old.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. So I'm not sure why it'd be an adverb if it's in front of a noun.
Um, well, the main reason I can think of is that it's modifying and. Um,
I don't think conjunctions can be modified.
okay, no, that makes sense. Um, what verb would it be modifying here?
Well,
Like,
we do use not with conjunctions,
um, yes, however, that's a special
sort of.
case, I think. Um,
Maybe.
so, uh, when it's, uh,
Let's,
well, maybe it might be under adverb here. Like, yeah, there's used with an auxiliary verb be to form the negative. Um, and then used as a short substitute for a negative clause. So that's often what we use it as, whether or
okay,
not
so
type thing.
here is someone saying that you cannot have modifiers for conjunctions. Yeah, I've read this before. Here's another person saying no. Adverbs only modify verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Similar to I've never seen a modifier for a preposition, I think.
Hmm. So is this example
So
just wrong? The adverb example for both?
I don't know, maybe it's a special exception. Maybe there's something weird about it.
Um,
Maybe someone was confused by this sentence, so they decided it was an adverb in this case, not a determiner for some reason.
I think the and is the reason for the difference between them, because we have like as a determiner we've got like both his parents, something like that. But
Hmm.
the fact that there's like an and, like we're not referring to one thing, um, uh, but like they say to emphasize the statement being made. So the film has one favor, with young and old, both young and old, is emphasizing that the favor was one over both of them. So it modifies the main verb, or has the main verb. Anyway, it's modifying one of them. Um,
So in 1828, they did not list both as an adverb at all. So what was the other one? Merriam-Webster 1928? No.
1913 was the other suggestion I think
Oh,
that came up.
13. Okay,
Oh, if
here
you're
we
talking
go.
Webster's, yeah, Webster's 1913.
Oh, yeah. Right. Both. Let's see, they have conjunction, and they just treat it as a special case.
Both and, yep.
What is
All
A?
right.
Does A mean, they
I
say
think
A or pronoun? Is A
adjective.
adjective, adverb?
I think it's adjective because I think they say adv for adverb. I'm
Okay,
not positive on that though. Or it couldn't be an article, could it?
I don't know, maybe. So,
It does say it's generally used adjectively with nouns.
okay.
Has the little pointer icon.
Yeah, so there's no mention of adverb in 1828 or 1913, so I think that might be a modern interpretation.
Yep.
So it doesn't entirely make sense to me why they would say that. So
Yeah, okay.
more research could be warranted, but yeah, I'm not convinced of that particular dictionary claim.
Cool. Can we quickly check the other examples for any
Yep.
big errors? Since I realize we're nearly out of time.
Okay. Steal that kid's lollipop.
Well, there's to be or not to be, which I think is fairly simple
Oh,
as
right.
a. Um,
Okay.
Webster's 1828 had like the term pro sentence, similar to like pronoun. Um,
Yep.
and so I've used it there because I thought it was appropriate.
Yes, that's fine. Yes, it is. Yeah, the word that can refer to a noun or to a bigger group sometimes, like a sentence. That's accurate. So we have is, question, the, and we have or, to be, not. Yeah, looks okay. Let's see. Steal that kid's lollipop whether you like it or not. So verb am, and then we have a chain of non-finite verbs with the going and the steal. And then we have the whether, conjunction, and the you like.
So the going, I realize I put down as like an org helper or org/helper verb and then modal, but I think that's just a gerund. Thinking about it, like it's an ing. I should probably.
Yep, so to steal should be the child of going. So there's
Yep.
two ways to do it, but you're not doing it consistently. If you're going to have the finite verb at the top, then you should chain them, and going is the complement of am, and then to steal is the object of going. On the other hand, if you're doing auxiliary verbs, then you would make steal be the main thing, I think.
The two in front of it feels like that would be
Yeah,
difficult.
the alternative then would be to have going as the main thing and say am as auxiliary. People think of am going as like a type of the go verb.
Um, yeah, that feels like a shortcut that I'm not so convinced about. Why wouldn't like if go is a verb, why wouldn't going be a gerund? We could just treat it like that, right?
Yeah. So regardless,
Um,
this is
Cool.
like a hybrid that's not consistent.
Cool. I think I've got mail, so I'll be back in a bit, but I guess we're pretty close to time. Um,
Okay.
Hey, sorry about that.
Hello. Okay, so this is odd because what I was going to say is that adjectives don't have determiners. However, I think that kids is sort of a hybrid where, because it's partly like a noun, but it's being turned into an adjective. So I think it really is
Yeah.
that kids, which is the modifier to lollipop. So I think
Yes,
it's like that kid, like if you put it in
and then
parentheses
possessive.
and then
Yeah.
you possessive the whole group. Yeah, I think it works like that. So I think you're correct here.
Yeah, I didn't label it well, but that was my thinking was that yeah, kid is the noun, but then because I didn't know we haven't done possessives sort of thing.
Yeah,
I think people don't bother much. Um,
but yeah, I think
Seems
that
like
is telling us which kid, not which lollipop. So that
yeah.
this makes sense. And then for the other one, there was one major. Oh yeah, so you have but as a conjunction, and then here you have a noun and a noun, rather than so these aren't clauses. So these are it's like an incomplete sentence. You need a verb somewhere, unless you're saying it's wrong.
Um,
So there has to be
so
a finite verb after the semicolon.
oh yeah, okay, because a semicolon is well, oh, I don't know all the uses, but if it's separating clauses, then that it'd have to be a
Yeah.
complete clause.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't have that. I just have modifiers on nouns. Um,
Yes. So you have to either read you have to either read it as incorrect or you have to read an implied verb, which would be find. Like you'll find the uninvited family in the drawing room, semicolon, not only implied find your long lost brother, but implied find also, or also implied find his new wife. So we'd have here and here we'd have find.
Um, Also the will find, I've d done the same like thing where I've put the like find is the helper verb on will, right?
Find is the object of will.
Um,
Will is the finite verb. You is the subject of will.
yeah. How is find the object? Because find is a verb.
It's an infinitive here.
Okay, all right. And then uninvited family is the object of find the infinitive.
Yeah, so suppose it was Joe. We'd have
Yep.
Joe will find. However, if you drop the will, then it would be Joe finds. It would not be Joe find.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
you can tell that
Yep.
it's not conjugated.
Yep. Um, so
So yeah, for the
y-
second part, you have to read implied verbs.
yeah, like not only find your long lost brother, but also find his new wife.
Yeah, even
So
that, you would need a subject too. Like, not only you find your long lost brother, but you find his new wife or something.
well, if
It
we
would be
put that
not
in there,
only
we
will
will
you
again.
find, is what you would
Yeah.
need. Yeah, not only will you find.
So the semicolon either implies like the yeah, the like the you will find, or we shouldn't have a semicolon. I think we can just have a colon there, right? Um,
I'm not sure. I think that's a little informal or sketchy, but probably understandable.
Here are the groceries I'm going to buy, colon, bananas, eggs, and bread.
Yeah, that's okay, but this sentence I wasn't sure about.
Okay. It also actually, if with the not, anyway. One thing that is so the way I tried to break it down, I had also as an adverb, but that went on the conjunction again.
Yeah, so main things are if you want to make progress with grammar, practice more simpler sentences. These are too complicated.
Yep.
Your error rate's too high, and it's too hard for you to be confident that you got them right.
Yep.
A good way to do that would be with the Peikoff's material. Alternatively, you could continue with the text analysis and set grammar aside, and I think that would work okay. You don't need the fine details of grammar in order to do well at text analysis.
Yep. That makes sense. It does worry, like I am worried that I'm getting sidetracked by it, but it feels incomplete, which is why I'm still focusing a bit on it. There's bits that are boring and bits that are interesting, so then I'm trying to do the interesting stuff, which has more complex things, which is, problematic in its own way. But yeah, okay. Cool. Well, I've got the rest of the grammar material to go with, as well as peek off and various homework elements there and stuff. Otherwise, I don't think there's any point. Um, yeah, like like you say, the error rate is too high. I need to break it down more.
Yep.
I'm sort of,
Okay.
yeah, writing things with texture instead of writing things that are good exercises. Cool. All right. I'll catch you on Friday or your Thursday.
Yep. Later.